All right, welcome to Learning About Loans. Krystal Miles, she
Hello.
actually asked me today to do this. So today, Crystal's like, boss, we got to talk about this. And I was like, what is it? And she did. I was like, absolutely. So this is, without a doubt, I'm not overselling it, one of the most important things that you need to know when getting a loan in Texas, when refinancing a home loan in Texas. So, Miss Crystal, what is today's topic? What are we going to talk about?
So we're going to talk about the difference between a rate and term refinance and cash out refinances because we've had several instances this year where we've had people searching for, cash outs or HELOCs and have come into a roadblock because they had an existing what we call a Texas A6, which is a cash out in Texas specifically. But they thought they did a rate and term refinance to lower their rate. The lender ended up putting them in a cash out loan either by mistake or just not doing what they should have been doing, and it prevented them from gaining access to their equity in this market where people have home improvements that they want to make or debt consolidation. And so I just wanted to speak to the differences between the two and how you can remedy the situation if your loan was misclassified.
So to sum all that up, in Texas, only Texas, there's a designation that can go on to a refinance called an A6. And for those that don't know, the A6 is the part of the Texas Constitution, yes, there's such a thing, where it addresses cash out home equity laws. And so what Crystal's saying is that in Texas, the A6 designation, once it gets tagged to a property or to a loan rather, once it says this is an A6, it can mess you up. So we need to first discuss what is the A6 and then when you do have it, what can you do? Because it may prevent you from doing something you want to do in the future. So let's talk about what an A6 is and what it isn't. So if you
Okay.
were to have a normal mortgage and you refinance, like a quote normal refinance that is not an A6. Crystal, when does something become an A6 in Texas?
So when you're actually taking cash out from your equity, whether it be a HELOC, HELOAN, or a cash out refinance, it gets tagged as a Texas A6. And the biggest difference between that and just lowering your rate is there's the rate and term refinance, which is just that you're just lowering your rate, nothing else. Any other, if you're paying off a second lien or taking cash out for any other reason, then you get that A6 designation.
So the A6 designation, to recap, the A6 is when you get cash out of your home, whether that is in the form of you refinance your loan and they give you money back at closing, or whether it's getting a brand new second mortgage, like a line of credit, or getting even a line of credit where you don't take any money. Just having that line of credit, that line of credit becomes the A6 mortgage. So
That's
whatever
correct.
mortgage you get cash out, that becomes an A6. Now, Crystal, is there a difference? And I know there is. Is there a difference in Texas between doing a cash out, or let's call it an agency cash out? I'm using air quotes, but that's actually what it's called. There's an agency cash out and an A6. Is there a difference between the two in Texas?
No.
Okay. So an agency cash out, guys, from a pricing standpoint, says that if I pay off a non-purchase second, so meaning like somebody gets a pool loan 3 years after they move in, they get a pool loan and they want to refinance and put them both together, that becomes an agency cash out. So even though you're not getting cash out, it is still considered an agency cash out by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, hence the agency part of the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac. So
That's
if
correct.
and when you go to closing, and this is the culprit, it's a combination. It's both mortgage company and title company. So, Crystal, what do I mean by what? How is the title company also a culprit in this thing? What do they do to make something an A6?
Because if they record the deed inappropriately and classify it as an A6, then again, you run into that same situation. So you either have a misclassification by the lender that originated your loan or a misfiling recording on the title company if they
Yep.
recorded it incorrectly.
And I will tell you this, another example of what you got to be real careful of, and I will raise my hand. In the 20 plus years we've been doing this, the one instance I remember, we screwed up as a team, right? So technically it wasn't my team, but it's me as the company. I'll represent, the company in this instance. Somebody was doing a normal refinance, air quotes, normal refinance, rate and term. And in order to qualify, they needed to pay off like a $1,200 credit card. No big deal. Write the check, just had to get it for debt ratios to come in line. Unbeknownst to us and the team, or to my immediate team, somebody in the closing department just decided to roll that in to the note toward the loan paid for that 1,200 bucks. I was expecting, the team was expecting her to write a check for $1,200 at closing to pay off the credit card in addition to whatever cost, whatever. But because it got rolled into the loan and it's not mortgage debt, that became an A6.
Yes.
So that's the only time something it's happened to us once. And again, 20 years and thousands of loans, even the best of the best can miss this. So you as a consumer need to know. So Krystal, how does somebody know they're getting an A6?
There will be paperwork basically saying it's a home equity type of loan, and even a cash out is considered home equity loan. So your paperwork would indicate that absolutely. And, we're all guilty of not always reading our paperwork before we sign it. But when it comes to refinances, and especially of this nature, you definitely want to pay attention to that because if your goal is to just lower your rate and not take any cash out, then you need to really pay attention to how your loan is classified.
And I would say ask whether if you're at a title company, because you're a title company closing, whoever the escrow officer is, I would ask them, is this an A6 loan? And if you don't think it is, 9.99 times out of 10, they're just going to say no and they're going to look at you like crazy. But you at least ask the question because, again, in our instance with that lady, the one, and I remember her well as far as like who she was because I called her up after it got recorded, like I saw it after it funded and said, oh my gosh, here's what just happened. Now, we did ultimately fix it later on. So that's neither here nor well, maybe it is here. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's it put it in a position where if she wanted to do something, and an A6, by the way, let me clarify this. It's not bad. Like an A6 is just fine. The thing is, if you know you're getting cash out, and that's the intent, and you want an A6, great loan, great option, do it. What we're talking about today is when somebody accidentally, unknowingly gets an A6 and what that does for the future. Okay, so Krystal, somebody's closed. They forgot to ask the title company. They've closed and incorrectly, they got tagged with an A6. Maybe they didn't know that they paid off that $1,200 as part of their loan, like in my example, or maybe they didn't know that getting an extra few bucks at closing would suddenly do something, make this an A6. What does the A6 prohibit them from doing in the future?
It prohibits you from getting any additional equity out without refinancing the entire balance. And where in instances this could create a problem is a lot of the people that refinance during the refi boom in, 2020 to even, late 2022 is, now they have a lot of equity in their home and maybe they want to get a HELOC to do some home improvements or some debt consolidation. Instead of taking a smaller portion at a higher rate, they now have to refinance that entire balance where they might have had a, 2, 3, 4% rate, and now we have to take them up to, a 7% rate on the entire balance versus just doing a smaller balance at a higher rate with a HELOC.
Yeah, so let's use numbers. If somebody during COVID got a loan for $500,000 and they got a 3.5% interest rate, man, they're ecstatic. They
Mhm.
refinanced their mortgage. They got a $500,000 loan at 3.5%. That's incredible. Fast forward years later, they want to get $100,000 out of their home to do don't care, right? Insert whatever it is. They want 100 grand for whatever reason they want it. They want it. Well, what Crystal's saying is because if they unknowingly or knowingly, doesn't matter, if they have an A6 on that $500,000 mortgage, when they did that 500,000, if they got an A6 loan or designation, they cannot go get a new second mortgage because they want to leave that 3.5 in place. They can't go get a brand new second lien line of credit because the Texas law, not us, not Mortgage Mark, not our company. Texas law says you can't have two A6s. So in other words, the only way to get that 100 grand is if they refinance out of their wonderful 3.5% rate and take a new instead of $500,000 line, they take a $600,000 loan, but now it's on whatever rates are
7%
six, seven,
probably
8%.
today.
Yeah. So so they've checked, they have one. What options do they have? So they realize that, man, I have that A6. I can't go get this. Is their only option they have to refinance or what can they do?
That is the only option. And you can do it two ways. You can just do a new cash out refinance, or you can do a rate and term refinance on the balance to get it out of the A6 status. And then that would allow you to do the second lien if you want to do that. And that's probably the most affordable option because rate and term refinances do carry a little lower rate than a straight cash out refinance. But either way, I mean, if your first lien has that lower interest rate, you're very easily probably doubling your payment. And what brought up this topic today was really just a misclassification of a refinance that should have been a rate and term, but it was classified as an A6, and now we're having to address that issue.
Yeah, so to Crystal's point, and there used to be, and this is actually better than it was. I don't remember the exact year, so forgive me, but I want to say 2018-ish, right? Give or take that time period. The old Texas law said once an A6, always an A6. Even if you refinance, in our example, the $500,000 A6, if somebody refinances it and on that new refi, they don't take any money, the old law, it's too bad. It's still an A6, which made no sense. So the good news is, like I said, I think it was 2018. I probably should have looked it up, but it doesn't matter. Now they say, cool, that A6 now, if you refinance it and don't get cash out, becomes an A4. So you don't need to worry about A4s. Just know this. When you refinance into a quote unquote normal rate and term, what Crystal's saying in this example, if somebody wanted to, they could refinance their 500 grand and they got two options. They can say, give me a new loan at 600 where they get out, or refinance this 500 grand into just a quote normal loan, the A4, and then go get a second loan for the 100 grand. And the reason why you might think that's silly, why would I do two loans? There could be some reason, but to Crystal's point, anytime you do an A6 loan, the interest rate or a cash out loan, the home equity loan, the rate will be higher. So it may be, this is Crystal's world, and this is where she would help, navigate those waters. It may be more economical to just do a normal refi on the 500 and then go get a cash out like line of credit on the second mortgage. It's just a math game at that point. There's no solid, you do this or do that. It's a run the numbers and see, and it depends on everybody's circumstances. Some folks may only want like 10 grand and they can repay it quickly. Others may want 300 grand, and there's weighted averages that come into play. So Chris, what else, hearing all this, I'm thinking, okay, how do I check? Like right now, if I'm not sure. I closed 3 years ago during, what was during this refinance process. How do I know if I have an A6 today? What can a homeowner do to see if they have an A6?
So if you have a copy of your closing paperwork, you can review that. It would be in there, or you can contact any title company and have them do a title search, and they can see how it was recorded, how the mortgage was recorded. And both of those would indicate if it was an A6.
Yep. So if you have your closing paperwork, start there. But even if you have it, you know what you're looking at. And I would say at that point, call the title company that did it, or hopefully if you know the mortgage mark team, call us and we can help look it up with you and for you. But even if we didn't do it, quite honestly, we can help you look at that too. So one is go look at your old paperwork. If you
Hmm.
don't know that, you can go to a title company directly, or look, call a mortgage company like us, right?
I
We
can
can
look
go
it
and
up.
order,
I can
we
look
can
that
do
info
it.
up.
Yeah, we can just order it and say, okay, title company, let us know if there's an A6 designation, and it will tell you clearly. So
Yeah.
again, to be very, very clear, A6s are good when they're done intentionally, when you know you're getting it. Where we've seen a lot of mistakes happen now these are all surfacing up because these are typically a lot of them are COVID loans. Let's just be clear. I mean, Crystal, you tell me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to throw
Yes.
stones. Don't want to throw stones because again, as I mentioned, I will one time out of the thousands of loans we've done, one time somewhere in the closing department, somebody did something they shouldn't have done. That's our responsibility. But we're seeing multiple, like too many instances here where big box companies, insert whatever name you want to insert, have done loans where these people, the homeowners, had no idea they were getting an A6. And
Yes.
now they want to redo something, and Crystal's got to be the messenger that says, sorry, so sad, can't help you. We have to do it different. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But it also led me to do a little research into if the loan was truly misclassified, because that's what it's called, is a misclassified loan. There are actually resources to remedy that. And if you can prove that it truly wasn't a cash out refinance, you can go to the original lender. That would be the first step. Go to the original lender. You want to check your closing disclosure to make sure you actually didn't get any cash out or pay off some debts. That would make it truly an A6 and go to them to reclassify it in the rate and term instead of the A6. Now,
That's amazing. So tell me this, how many um oh, you've seen more than one. Obviously, we're doing this video for that reason. You've seen more than one here in the last just 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's wild to me. So, and I'm not trying to point fingers, but I'm trying to understand. By your best guess, is it a lender? It is probably the answer is probably both. But would you put more onus on the lender or the title company? Like who goofed up that classification? Do you think that's the lender saying, "Hey, do it this way," or do you think the title company wasn't paying attention and did it that way?
It's more often than not probably the lender and at a more lower level, the loan officer, because there are a lot of loan officers that might just think that all refinances in Texas should be an A6 and maybe they just don't know better. And that's not an excuse by any means because it is our job to know what we're doing. But I do think it's a loan officer level issue if it was misclassified.
I agree, and here's why. COVID was a crazy time in the mortgage world, the world, but obviously in the mortgage world from a volume standpoint. And we are no exception. We hired a bunch of folks that aren't in the industry today because we needed help, we needed bodies. And but I probably the way we are structured as a team, they are not they don't do the important stuff, right? But I will tell you, big companies, big banks, big mortgage companies, they needed bodies, and so they put people in the seats. And I will also tell you that not even during COVID, just in general today, the A6 laws are so funky and so goofy. There are many, many lenders that don't even do these type of loans in Texas. And then there's lenders that don't do a lot of business in Texas and they will just treat every loan like an A6. So
Hmm.
that way they stay out of hot water. Because if you don't do something right, it is a big, big problem. Because now if they treated it conservatively and put every loan they did as an A6, they're not in trouble. I mean, nothing illegal was done versus if they didn't disclose, didn't do it right, they could have done something illegal. Here, it's unfortunate. It's not
I will
illegal
say
because you,
there,
the homeowner, signed the paperwork. If you didn't ask him, you didn't, it's not illegal. You just signed a piece of paper that you
yeah.
probably should ask more questions about.
Well, the biggest offenders I've seen are
Big ones.
non-local online
Yeah.
lenders,
Hey, the
brokers,
online, the big ones, the brokers, the whatever you
angle
want
a
to
cheap
say.
rate but don't know what they're doing.
And again, I will put the shameless plug here is again, that is why we emphasize like what we do and how we do it as a team. Krystal and I have worked together now for a long time and we've been in the business for even longer, obviously. But the reality is like you do get what you pay for in life. And again, if somebody says, "Oh, we're going to be $100 lower," it's like, really? Like and it's not off, but we have folks leave us for 100, $200. Like, come on, man. And this is a great example of how you do get what you pay for in life. So I would just say again, shameless plug, whether it's us or anybody else, just make sure you work with somebody who's reputable, who knows what they're doing, that comes recommended, that's local if you can. And now, by the way, we do loans in all the states, so I don't want to say you have to use local. Just make sure you're dealing with somebody who knows what they're doing and knows the local regulations and laws, etc. Crystal, this is awesome. What else? Are there any other last thoughts, comments, things that I haven't thought about? What else is there that we need to hit on between?
Um, I think that's the gist of it, but we will put some links and resources to help you if your loan was truly misclassified. That way, you know where to look or make, you know, to remedy the situation. But it's really going to come on, knowing if you have an A6, knowing if you truly got cash out, you're going to want to look at your closing disclosure specifically, because that's going to provide all of the numbers that you need to determine if you really had an A6 or not. But we'll put links to the resources to remedy that.
Yep. And again, if you got that like thick papers, all that stuff, if you don't know on that closing disclosure, look for anything that says Texas home equity or 12-day letter or something like that. Those are all buzzwords, but that paperwork can be in there. So at the end of the day, look, reach out to Krystal, reach out to me. We're here to help. So if you're not sure, reach out to us. And if you did by accident get one, again, there's ways around it. You may not like it. There's ways around it. Refinancing it may cost you money, but ultimately we can help you get it done. But Krystal, phenomenal. I appreciate that you reached out to me for this. A lot of times I'm like, hey, we need to do this because you're just so freaking smart. And it's just one
Thank
of those
you.
things of getting it out there. So thank you for doing this. And if you guys do need something, again, reach out. We're here, mortgagemark.com. We appreciate you as always. Krystal, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.